to At the Mic with Michael Schumacher, brought to you by JR's Oasis. It's more than a fuel station, more than a convenience store. It is your one-stop travel shop on Fox Sports Radio, 101.5 FM, 1570 AM, KVTK, Vermilion and Yankton. And in the studio, we have the PA guy for Crofton Juniors baseball, who joined me on the broadcast last night from Tabor. It's Kendall Thoene, host of Your Sports Podcast with Kendall Thoene. Kendall, how you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Well, it's my pleasure. And so, one of the things, it's easy on this side of the river for me to be able to follow South Dakota. I mean, it's easier to follow South Dakota Legion ball and all of that. I'm trying to keep up with Nebraska, but you're kind of in the heart of it, so I thought, let's have you on and talk a little Nebraska Legion baseball. How's that sound?
Sounds good, Michael.
All right.
I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, I am too. Obviously, baseball in Northeast Nebraska is always fun, and you've got some great amateur teams, but also great Legion teams. And just kind of take us through some Nebraska baseball, if you would.
Yeah. I'll go ahead. Not this weekend, but next weekend, start the Randolph-Bishop League Conference Tournament for the juniors on the Saturday. Next Saturday, we have two regular season games left in regular season action before we start that conference tournament. But you got conference tournament bracket release for the juniors, and the number one overall seed is Hartington. They are with one loss on the year, but consistent, very consistent. They beat Crofton earlier 5-1 in a very competitive game. Also, you have this is part of the North region of the Randolph-Bishop League tournament, and they will take on Pierce, the 8th seed, having a difficult season, but coming around as of late, starting to pick up some wins in there. And then also in Hartington will be the 4 seed Plainview, and they will be taking on the 5 seed Ponca.
Okay.
Also in that area, Crofton will be a host site on that Saturday. They'll be the 2 seed.
Okay.
As they will start at noon next Saturday against the 7 seed Wakefield Trojans. And then on their side of bracket is the 3 seed South Sioux City, which brings up an interesting point because this last week we hosted South Sioux City in Crofton, and that was a walk-off winner for Crofton, 2-1.
Oh, wow.
And a walk-off finish. So that be very interesting if those two teams meet up again in the conference tournament.
Definitely. And so Hartington's the 1 seed, Crofton's the 2 seed. They're both having really good years. These are the juniors, correct?
These are the juniors, yes.
And so who are some of the players that people want to keep an eye on from those teams?
Keep an eye on Knox Hagee. He's been playing pretty well lately. Also, another person that I would keep an eye out on is Harrison Poppy. He has really came to play and plays very well. And consistency, I say another player you gotta just love is number 19, Jarrett Johnson. He's been pitching really, really, really strong for Crofton over this year when Crofton needed their pitching to step up.
Okay. And so that's next weekend. So who do they play between now and then?
They are at Plainview tomorrow
Okay.
at Plainview, and then on Saturday they host Tri-County, which is funny. They just played Tri-County this last Saturday, and they'll play Tri-County again this upcoming Saturday.
Now, Tri-County, is that Tri-County out of South Dakota?
Out of Nebraska.
Okay,
yes,
that's
I know.
interesting.
It's interesting because they combine it with three kind of different schools, and it's
See, we have one here in South Dakota too, and it's Viborg, Hurley, Gayville, Vollen, and Irene, Wakanda, and so it's right here in this region. So I'd see it, and I'm always like, okay, is that the Tri-County Sun Dogs, which is here in South Dakota? So Tri-County in Nebraska, who does that include?
Consist of Orchard. You get some kids from the Niobrara area.
Okay, so Niobrara, Verdigris,
Verdigris,
Orchard, that area.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so excellent. All right, so I'm sure that's what Knox County,
Kind of, yeah.
Boyd County.
Boyd County area.
Okay, all right, excellent. Well, that's interesting, and so that's in a week from tomorrow. And so a week from tomorrow, will that just be one game in Crofton, or are they hosting two games?
They'll officially host one for sure, but depending on if the top seed would fall.
Okay.
But most likely will be only one game in Crofton for the conference tournament. But there are two games that day in Crofton.
Two games that day in Crofton. Okay. All right. And then is that one single elimination for that tournament?
It is single elimination for the Randolph Bishop League.
Okay. All right. So do they have one game Saturday, then one Sunday, or when do they play again?
Yes, it would be. They would be off Sunday and play Monday.
Okay. All right. Well, that should be fun. So Legion's, Crofton's playing well. Hardington is playing well. And you mentioned Knox Heggie. I'm interviewing Knox Heggie. That'll air next week on Monday. And so I was glad you mentioned that name. Also interviewing some Hardington players as well, more from the seniors, but trying to keep my fingers in. And it's funny because, baseball is one of those, especially in the summer, it's more of a collective. So Crofton isn't just Crofton. You have some players that would be considered like Why Not?
Why Not?
Right?
Why Not is combined with Crofton.
Okay.
For juniors and seniors.
Okay. All right. So that's why you're going to hear some. Not that Hymus isn't a name that's in Crofton, but it's more of a Why Not traditional type of name. So
yes, and very well pointed out for the Hymuses in the Why Not area. They are very good athletes all the way around for Why Not overall. And just plug that in with all the kids that play for Crofton. It makes a pretty interesting duo.
Well, definitely. So let's go ahead.
And then you get the funny source of then they split off and face against each other in the South Central League baseball.
Exactly, and that's what's funny. And because then also in South Central you get some of those Hardington kids that will then go to Why Not?
To Why Not, or some of them go to Crofton
some
too.
do go to Crofton.
So it kind of split the Cedar-Knott County rivalry right into that South Central League baseball game.
Exactly. No, it makes it fun. And so obviously, that's juniors. Let's talk a little bit about seniors, the older crowd. Now I know you said Crofton's scuffling a little bit, but now's when it comes to the time you want to be playing well now. And now's kind of not that the regular season doesn't matter, it's more of a preparation for this time of the season. So kind of talk about the senior schedule and what they have going on.
The senior schedule, they also will play on Friday against Plainview in Plainview, and then also we'll play the 2:00 game on Saturday against Tri-County. So they have the duple threat of playing two back-to-back, and then they play Monday against West Point, which West Point is a very, very good program at West Point. They actually, during school ball, they made it down to state in Class C area baseball, and they were all the way up to runners-up in Class C in baseball.
Wow.
And that was combined with West Point Beamer, also combined in there.
Okay.
They play together.
All right. So West Point Beamer. So that's going to be a tough one. Now, kind of talk about how those teams are doing, because Crofton's not, like we said, what'd you say? They're 3-8?
4-8.
4-8. Okay, I was shortchanging them. And then Hardington's been doing really well. They're just
Hartington
a single
is
loss team as well.
single
And the seniors
loss
too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Single loss team in
Well,
the seniors, and
that Hardington team is really led by a good number of actual seniors who have graduated. Your Brighton Whitmeyers, your Sam Weeblehouses, players like that. Your
Hunter
Brody
Benson.
Hunter Benson,
Yeah.
Brody Hookstein. Kind of talk about that Hardington team, and then let's talk about that Crofton team as well.
that Hardington team is very mixed with older players, more to the aspect that they have senior leadership. They've seen how the Randolph Bishop League plays, and now they're here to make some damage in the league. And I remember starting off in the because Crofton started off a year ahead of Hardington in this Randolph Bishop League. Okay. Crofton was the first one to start in the Randolph Bishop League, and then Hardington came over after the year ended to be a part of this Randolph Bishop League. It took us about 3 years to officially groove and see how we would progress throughout the Randolph Bishop League, and now you see that Crofton and Hardington are very much so in their fourth and third year where they made the jump, where they can compete at a high level against really, really quality teams. Like you got in Class B, Wayne. Wayne is also in their conference. You got Wakefield that's really, really competitive in seniors. You just got a quality northeast part of the region in there, and then, Plainview made it all the way to the quarterfinals of football. You got interesting part that consistently is very important throughout the whole bracket.
A lot of great athletes.
Yes.
And baseball is one of those sports, too, that great athletes can, and not necessarily excel, but great athletes can make their way in baseball because you're just trying to make contact. There's always that good hand-eye coordination. There's that physicality. There's always going to be some good defense. Because just good athletes running the outfield and playing on the infield. And so great athletes can provide a lot of balance when it comes to baseball. And that's why you see Hardington with Hardington, Newcastle, and Cedar Catholic, kind of feeding that. With Crofton, with Wynot and Crofton. Plainview, just a really solid school and a program. And Tri-County with Orchard and all of, and Niobrara Verdigris and all of that. And I'm sure there's that random Bloomfield kid that's probably floating around somewhere. They might not have a program. They might not necessarily be name attached to a program. But I'm sure there are baseball players in Bloomfield that are like, yeah, I make the trip to here or there. But great athletes will manage to excel in some way, shape, or form in baseball.
Yes, exactly. And we had some combined players last year that was a part of the Wausau Bloomfield area. And that combined ourselves with Wausau, Crofton, Wynot area coming together to form like a Crofton, Wynot and little part of Wausau in there. And it made it very interesting, and they were very, very good athletes and very competitive and very well sought after for trying to find that line of where you can directly ask players to come over and play for you, or is it on the line that it goes to the other team?
Yeah, that becomes interesting. It's unlike a school district and where there's open enrollment. There's different regulations when it comes to Legion ball, but Nebraska as a state has great Legion tradition, and where is state played for Legion? Do you know?
That has not came out yet.
Okay. For a number of years, it was always played in St. Paul, and I know people would be like, why St. Paul? Well, for baseball, old school baseball fans and baseball history aficionados, do you know the famous player from St. Paul, Nebraska? Grover Cleveland Alexander. Grover Cleveland Alexander, a famous player for the St. Louis organization, pitched kind of a contemporary of Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, maybe a little bit of the post-Cy Young era. But Grover Cleveland Alexander, one of the Hall of Famers in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame from Nebraska, along with like Wahoo Sam Crawford. Can you tell where Wahoo Sam Crawford's from? The name's the hint.
Wahoo.
Yes, exactly. All-time leading triples hitter in Major League Baseball, and he's from Nebraska. And so you have some great Nebraska tradition, and so St. Paul was the home for a while because of Grover Cleveland Alexander. It was just kind of a home base. But Nebraska and Legion Baseball, just like South Dakota and Legion Baseball, are synonymous with each other. Now, who are some of the players for that Crofton senior team? Because we mentioned some of the players for Hartington, and especially Brighton Whitmire. I want to mention him. He's going to be continuing his baseball career at Mount Marty. But who are some of those Crofton players?
The Crofton kids for the senior level, you mentioned the Hymases, Justin Hymas, you got Lane Hymas. Lane Hymas is doing a great job in center field for Crofton. He has really shined at that position.
I think we've heard the name Hymas in center field for why not in years past in amateur ball too. It feels like
yes. So I think it will continue, Michael.
Yeah, I think so too.
In that way, he has done a great job in center field this year for Crofton, and just some great kids that will lead up to the continuing. Crofton is a very young team this year.
Is it? Okay.
So not a lot of experience at the senior.
So this is kind of laying the foundation for maybe next year. So some bumps and bruises along the way.
Yeah.
But if you can keep the kids coming out next year, will probably be a little more solid.
We're kind of young this year. There is a senior, Josh Polinsky.
Okay.
On that team this year, but pretty young overall this year for Crofton. Overall, with why not?
Well, and that happens. Sometimes you just don't have those. What I do hope to see Crofton do is I'd love to see, and I talked with Colton Schieffer about this before South Central League started. It doesn't seem like that you get a lot of the players that continue playing on at the amateur level, and it'd be great to see some of these kids that once they're done with Legion ball continue playing as Blue Jays, because that's the feeder system that keeps your amateur baseball
alive.
So I hope we get some Legion players that will decide to continue. I know some of these other schools or towns have started seeing that, so hopefully Crofton can start seeing that as well, because that Crofton tradition is unbelievable. And like I mentioned at the beginning, you are the PA guy for Crofton juniors, correct?
Juniors and seniors.
So you're the Legion guy.
And 14 under. So
all right. So I think that used to be called midgets, but it's not anymore.
Ponies.
It's now ponies. They decided that was and I'll be honest, I never thought of it in that term, until they're like, oh, we can't say that. It's like, oh yeah, I get it.
Uh-huh.
But as somebody who, if you're not in that mindset, it's just, oh, this is the league that we're in. So that's always interesting. So how did you come about being the PA guy for 14U juniors and seniors?
Well, I started back about 6 years ago. I started going into games. I would just start helping out, and then Dean Weisler, the coach at the time, said, well, we're looking for a volunteer that would want to run the scoreboard and be an opportunity to run the scoreboard and then do some PA announcing on the side.
Nice.
So then I got into it right year one, about year 4 under Dean Weisler as the head coach, and he now in Florida, so he's having fun down there. And then it went on to Jason Babcock, and he had been there 3-4 years, and now the new head coach, Ben Hagee, is in year 1.
All right.
At the helm of Crofton.
Excellent.
And a very good Blue Jay player.
Good Blue Jay player and good teacher. And that's
Yeah.
I think that's the important part. Ben comes from a good line of athletes in baseball and stuff like that. So having a good teacher as that coach, I think that's always good. And I hope that doesn't come off. I'm not saying anything because I know Ben, and so it feels like that's a really good fit for him as far as passing along that baseball knowledge, whether it's skill sets or situational or just, I think, the love of the game. I think he's really well suited for that. So I don't want anyone to take praise for Ben as criticism of anybody else. I'm just saying, knowing Ben, I think that's a really good spot for him.
Yeah, and we'll see that over time build.
Yeah. Nope, I agree. All right, well, so you're going to be busy, and hopefully you're going to be joining me on some South Central League broadcasts, as the time allows. So, we'll be hearing from you more, but we can probably have you back on, and we'll talk about how the postseason goes, and we'll talk more about that. So that's next week. So maybe the week after that, would that work for you?
Sure.
All right. Well, we'll be touching
out.
base, and we'll get that connection, and then. Do you still do this? It hasn't come across. Are you still doing the sports podcast on a weekly basis?
Yes. I took a break, and I'll be back this next week.
Okay. I'm glad because I thought I was missing it, and I tagged you. I tagged the sports podcast, and so if people want to follow that, some great Nebraska information. It's your sports podcast. It's Sports Podcast with your host, Kendall Thoene, on Facebook. Just look that up, and I think it would come up if you just looked up Kendall Thoene. Your personal profile would come up, but I think that Sports Podcast would come up as well. And they're not long. It's not. No. It's just a few minutes, but you're dropping some knowledge on some Nebraska sports. You do some interviews periodically with athletes and coaches and administrators. So it's a really nice tool. It's really good information. So definitely, if you're on Facebook, go to Sports Podcast with your host, Kendall Thoene. And it's just a nice little light informational center. If you're old school like me, it's almost like that George Michael sports machine. It's just some quick knowledge. It's some quick information getting dropped, but it's definitely worth your time. So Kendall, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael.
Hey, my pleasure. All right, we'll be back with more. This is At the Mic with Michael Schumacher, brought to you by JR's Oasis on Fox Sports Radio.